So hello, this is Basil Kilani with Tech Sparks. I have a guest today, and he is a great entrepreneur. His name is Yacin Bahi. Yacin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So let's start by asking you the question about what instigated the idea of the creation of Sensor.net.
So Sensor.net is really the brainchild of my co-founder, Adam Begelin. He was he sold his company to AOL and moved back to Vietnam, and he wanted to keep an eye on his house in California. So he started tweaking a PC with webcams, and he got it working. And then after a week in Vietnam, everything crashed, and he thought, being a web guy and a computer guy, he thought that the cloud should be the answer for do-it-yourself security. And so he built a prototype and convinced me to join the team, and the rest is history, and we've been working on it for 3 years now.
So customers will consume Sensor offering entirely from the cloud. In what ways cloud computing helped you move faster in building Sensor.net?
So from day one, we've built Sensor by leveraging cloud computing. We have everything that support our operation, software development, supporting our customer. Everything is built leveraging the cloud and using services that are built on the cloud. We rent compute resources. We archive a lot of video today, and we rent disk space in the cloud. Everything we do is about leveraging the cloud, and doing that is allowing us to remain very lean. We do a lot with a very small team, and we struggle to be. We really work hard at staying very agile and very small, and the cloud is allowing that for us.
So speaking of cloud computing, what type of new possibilities or trends do you see in cloud computing, even services?
Let me answer that question from building a startup, from the perspective of building a startup. With services, cloud computing services like Amazon, AWS, there's really a paradigm shift that happened in the past five years, and especially for software startups, the cloud computing made a lot of things that were expensive and difficult in the past much easier and less capital intensive. So, for instance, it shifted the capital expenditure to operational expenditure. By that I mean that instead of, for instance, for Sensor.net, instead of having to rent a data center, build servers, buy servers, and build and provision servers, we just now rent those resources and pay as we go, scale as we need, instead of requiring a large upfront capital investment. So it's one of the aspects that cloud computing and all the services that have been built in the past 5 years on top of the cloud, like file sharing services, project management services, customer support services, like companies like Salesforce.com, really all those things have made possible lean and mean startups.
So you got 1.5 million USD dollars in funds from Charles River Ventures and Spark Capital. Do you have any tips on raising funds for startups and entrepreneurs, and primarily in MENA, actually?
So Spark is our lead investor, and we have a set of 6 strategic investors along with Spark Capital. And I think I would start by building a prototype. And if you have an idea for a startup, build a prototype, and with that prototype, build a strong team. Use that prototype to convince a couple of great guys to join you. If you know the those guys from experience before even better, but use that prototype to convince someone to join your project. And once you have the prototype and the team and the strong team, you're in good position to go and talk to investors. And if you choose to raise, well, you have to ask yourself really if you need to raise money. It's if you have a prototype and a strong team, you can start maybe selling the product. And if you set the price right, you might not need capital. But if you need capital, and if you go and decide to go after funding, raise as much as you can, because it's very distracting for a startup to raise capital. It's time that you're not spending building your product, understanding your customers, and so if you raise capital, just raise as much as you can, and be picky about who you allow to come on board, because it's there's great investors, and there's less. Well, less, I don't know how to say it, but less good investors. So be picky and raise as much as you can.
So looking at the marketing aspect, what was the most effective marketing scheme you used to promote Sensor?
So at Sensor.net we do what we call inbound marketing. We try to build content that is relevant to our customer base. And so for instance, because we're all about cameras and surveillance, we build guides or blog posts about how to set up a camera, how to use our service. And if the content is interesting, what we hope is that, and what we see happening is that our customers are going to start sharing that content. And that's going to bring traffic to our site. And it's basically like a snowball effect. It takes time to build up marketing this way, but once you get it going, it grows by itself. And if you stop putting dollars in your inbound marketing, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to stop. Versus marketing versus buying Google ads or bringing traffic through Google ads, where as soon as you stop putting dollars in Google ads, you stop your traffic. So we've seen that we've been fairly successful with that strategy, and we've created buzz around events that happen in front of cameras that we had, for instance. And that brought some good spikes in traffic.
So Yacin, do you see any trends or opportunities arising with, as far as the bandwidth when it improves? I'm talking globally.
So in terms of bandwidth, we've been talking about the cloud. And the cloud is this huge repository of resources, compute resources, and storage. And with bandwidth increasing and bandwidth cost decreasing, the opportunity that I see and that we see happening on the market today is that all the devices that are today on the edge that don't necessarily communicate with the cloud, well, it now becomes possible to have in a cost-effective way to have those devices communicate with the cloud. And once you enable that, and when I'm talking about devices, it can be anything from a camera to a scale to a heart monitor. With companies like Fitbit or companies like Nest, a thermostat for Nest, for instance. So as soon as you have those devices that are on the edge, as soon as they start communicate with the cloud, there's a lot of things that you can do in terms of offering new services to customers. Because you have access to this massive and almost unlimited compute power, you can do a lot more processing, you can do data gathering, and from that build new services and features. And that's typically what we do at Sensor.net. We leverage the cloud, and we have all those devices, those cameras pushing to our cloud service.
So video streaming or consumption is huge, and there's a big future in that vertical. What opportunities or great potential businesses do you see emerging in this space?
So I think in couple of years, or maybe 5 years, everything we see with pictures, with images, are going to be enabled for videos. So I'm talking about products around video editing, video sharing, online sharing, and there are several companies that are already pursuing the opportunities, and that are trying to reproduce the success that Instagram, for instance, had with images. Companies like Animoto or VD or Social Cam, they're all around enabling video sharing, video editing online, and I think it's still a very fragmented space that we're going to see more consolidation. It's fragmented also on the technology side, and so it's still open, and there's still a lot of opportunities there.
So in your former startup, Ypsis, you served the European customers. Did you have any operational office in Europe to serve those customers? And what challenges did you face entering the European market? As a lot of startups and companies from the Middle East would love to have that approach, having presence in the Middle East market, but yet have business done pretty much globally.
So we at Ypsis we were offering R&D services for very specific cloud computing related, advanced mathematical, that kind of services, development services, and we had a development team in Tunisia, and offices and customers in US, in the Silicon Valley, and the virtual office in Europe. We had customers in Europe just because we didn't really do anything to get those customers. They were just from our network of partners, or so. In terms of challenges, the European market is more fragmented than the US market. It's about the same size, but more fragmented. So in terms of marketing, there might be a challenge there. If we're talking about cloud services or web service or an app, a mobile app, the R&D effort is mostly localization, but then there is the going to market that is always a challenge. So I guess the answer is build a network in Europe, find partners and channels.
So Ypsis helped, it created the technology for FanSnap event search, and it's used in Bing. Can you tell us about that technology, please?
So with Ypsis, we're providing R&D services, and with FanSnap, what we did, we helped them build a platform to digitalize venues for events, sports events, or and build models where you could zoom in and out. So it was fairly advanced mathematics that were involved, a lot of computer science, and that was basically running in the back end. There was also a front end part of it, and it happened. We had a collaboration that lasted for about a year with FanSnap to build that technology. It was very exciting.
So that technology, you guys actually had a patent for the algorithm. How did the FanSnap get a deal with Bing? A lot of companies would love to be in bed with the big boys. How did you guys reach that deal?
So I wasn't part of the negotiations with Bing and Microsoft. So, but what I can say is, it's really in that type of building that type of partnership is really about who you know, and not really what you know. So it's about finding a way to finding through your network or getting to the right person and starting the negotiation with that person. Now, having said that, in terms of intellectual property, having patents helps a lot. It's just a leverage, one of the leverages that you can have in negotiating with, especially with big companies. And patents is, I think, one of the three pillars that, in terms of intellectual property, that the startup has to think about. One is patent, another one is keep innovating, and another one is trade secrets. So things that one of the drawback with patents is you're making your invention public, so it's easier to reverse engineer.
So looking at the lean startup world, can you tell us your take on the lean startup methodology and the minimum viable product?
Yes, I'm passionate about lean startup. I think it's really the best way today to build a startup. And I'm gonna just make an analogy. Imagine yourself moving to a new country with and then having the project of opening a new restaurant. You don't know the country, you don't know the culinary tastes, and you have two choices, right? You can either invest 200K building remodeling a nice restaurant and trying to open your restaurant, or you can try to understand better your market. And you can, for instance, very easily, think of a menu, print that menu, maybe 20 copies, buy a table and set up a booth on the corner of a street, and start trying to sell and get customers to buy you items from your menu. And at the end of the day, you would have, with a very limited investment, maybe $200, I don't know, you would have understood a lot better your customer and what they're after, and the whole context of your project.
So jumping to the markets, you have an operation in the US and you also serve the European market. What's your thoughts about the MENA market in terms of potential, in terms of any specific verticals that you think are untapped or with great potential?
So the MENA market, in terms of providing a service or web service for the MENA region, there's potential there. There's also, in terms of we are in the Silicon Valley. It's fairly difficult to hire technologists, developers. So we see also an opportunity there. There's a lot of talent in the MENA region, and I see definitely an opportunity there in terms of hiring talent from the MENA region. In terms of, I've always done software and web. So for me, when I think marketing a product, a new product to a new market, it's the context for me is software and web products. So what that translates into for addressing a new market is more or less, in terms of R&D costs, it's more or less just localization. There's going to be also marketing cost involved, but so it's fairly easy for a web company to have customers in any region today. With Sensor.net, for instance, we have customers worldwide, and there isn't a huge, actually a fairly small cost that we have in order to support those markets.
So coming to the closing question, what tips and pointers do you have for entrepreneurs and startups in the Arab world?
So I was in London last week for a web conference, and it was all about technical innovation, business innovation, and investment. And then I flew to Tunis. So I just came back from Tunis, and it's really a very different reality. There's a lot of young graduates that are unemployed. There's inadequate access to capital, so difficult access to cloud computing for software startups. So it's definitely harder to build a startup in the MENA region than it is in the Silicon Valley, for instance. There are more challenges and more uncertainties. Well, I think entrepreneurs sees challenges and problems as opportunities. So in a way, there are a lot of opportunities in the MENA region today. So when I hear an entrepreneur in the MENA region tell me, well, I can't buy cloud computing services. I don't have a credit card. I don't have access to a billing service. Well, for me, what I hear is, well, let's build some sort of gateway between cloud computing services that exist in the Silicon Valley, for instance, and the MENA region, or let's build a billing platform for startups to use. And when I hear uncertainties, also to me it translates into, well, let's apply lean startup methodologies to reduce the risk of all those uncertainties, and let's learn as we go, build a project, and understand the customers. So yes, there are a lot of challenges. Yes, there are a lot of problems in starting a company in the MENA region, but I think there are also a lot of opportunities, and it's a lot of fun to build a startup at the end of the day. So,
Yacin, thank you very much for your time today. It has been a great pleasure.
Basel, thank you for your time too.